I loved yesterday because Louis, in a way, had been given a royal glow up. He'd been, instead of sitting as a small child with his mother and Charlotte, he'd been placed with the princes. So he was next to his dad, very much under his dad's wing, and then he got big brother George sitting on the other side. And you could kind of see from his body language at the start, he actually pulled a face that the late Queen used to pull, which was this sort of slightly glum looking look of strong concentration, as though somebody had said to him, look, no playing around today. It's a big day. You've got to act like a grown up now. And you could almost see the effort in Louis's face. What then became apparent, though, was the way that he's kind of leapfrogged the royal pecking order. He's always done this. Louis, like all children, born in a state of fearlessness, but Louis has kind of kept this state of royal pecking order fearlessness going. Um, if you remember, he would just go up and talk to the late Queen on the balcony. He'd have a chat to her. He'd ask to sit on Grandad's lap at another public event. I noticed that during the VE Day celebrations, when they were all walking back into the palace, he didn't want to stay with his parents. He just marched up to Princess Anne, who can be quite daunting, I think, as a member of the royals. He just walked up, had a chat to her. I'm going to engage her in conversation. So he's wonderfully fearless. And I love the way that I think that William is a little bit going to be on a hiding to nothing with his youngest son. I think the idea now is, right, George is now a chip off the old block. He's learned all the skills. His skills had just increased. We could see that with George and Charlotte. They've gone from two children that have to be gently nudged forward to shake hands, to do meeting and greeting. George, in particular, would look very shy when he wasn't shaking hands. But now, like Charlotte, he's actually there with the social interaction. He's taken it to the next step, where, like his parents, he and Charlotte won't just be nudged forward to shake hands. They're actually already interacting. They're leaning forward. They're waiting for their turn. When they shake hands, they will smile. They will use an eye engage. So they're becoming very much like royal grown up. So that's two off the list. Louis, I think, to a certain extent, should now be the one that is in awe of his big brother, in awe of his dad. It's not going to happen. And wonderfully, the biggest problem that William's got is that I think that Louis is his alter ego. Now, William has brought George up to be very princely, a king in waiting. He's done a wonderful job. And George, in terms of being like his dad, has got that slightly little bit of diffidence, slightly shy body language at times, thoughtful. But I have to say that Louis is William's other alter ego, because William, as a child, I will use an old-fashioned word, he was a bit of a scamp. He wasn't always that sort of goody two-shoes that we see now. He could be extremely playful. And I think looking at his son, Louis, he probably thinks, yeah, you know, I'm like that as well secretly. So it's very difficult for him to know how to deal with it. But I think what we've got is this generational leapfrogging going on, because I love the way that Louis suddenly turned round and looked at his dad. Now, this was a checking glance. And it's very interesting that a small boy like that would be doing that with his dad. He turned around, he looked, and you could almost see him doing a double take that, oh, dad's got a raindrop on his jacket. And he didn't just brush it off. He made a real display of he looked like somebody's granny, as though he's going to bring a hanky out and wipe his face any minute now. So he clearly is beginning to see himself in the role of looking after dad too. Then we saw the wonderful gesture with George, which is where George sort of brushed his hair, and then Louis did this whole number, taking the mickey out of his brother as well. And you can kind of see with William and George, what are we going to do about this? He's not showing that respect that we're expecting. He's kind of leapfrogged over us. And, that happened as well when they were on the balcony, because when they were standing there, now Louis would normally be the son that needs to be checked on the balcony, make sure he's doing the right thing. Charlotte would be keeping an eye on him. But after he was sort of playing the drums on the balcony itself, it was so interesting that when the anthem started to play, he suddenly turned around to check on his older brother. And you can see him warning George, because George has still got his hands clasped in front of his torso. You can see Louis have a little bit of a word with his older brother, and George then stands to attention. And this is hierarchical leapfrogging. He's now the one that is beginning to give out the little orders to his elder brother and his dad. I think he's probably got to go back under Charlotte's wing, actually, because I think he's always been pretty reverential to Charlotte. And this is very much like the relationship, and we saw it on the balcony, of Charles and Anne, which is where Anne is wonderfully more confident than Charles. She always has been. I think she's always probably got that status thing going on there. And what we saw yesterday on the balcony, there was a moment when Charles started to wave and say goodbye. And Anne realised that they hadn't played the anthem yet. And you can see immediately her hand went out and she had a little bit of a word with her brother, and he turned back. So it's like history repeating itself to a certain extent. And I've got a feeling that we might actually see Louis standing closer to Charlotte and Kate next time. But it's just a wonderful dynamic. And obviously, for Louis, the word why doesn't really work, does it? Because if William says, oh, you need to look interested, it's great. He can say that to George. Why? Because you're going to be king. Say it to Louis. Why? I don't need this. It doesn't have to be my job. Oh, there are other royal princes that don't bother to hang around. His destiny is not mapped out. So it's going to be very hard for William to maybe get two chips off the old block, except that I think Louis will be the secret chip off the old block. He will be that fun alter ego of William.